Hi guys. Just a quick touch up on where we left off on Monday night. I'm not seeing the guys from Christ College until early next week. I think it's Tuesday next week. So as soon as I've seen them, I'll post out onto the web the general parameters of the do's and the don'ts that we can actually achieve. So that'll give you a bit more of a guide for your thinking around what where you might be heading as far as the nature. And I'll talk to them about nature of alcohol consumption and those types of issues. Just try and flesh that out a little bit. What I'm hoping and what's required of you guys before our next workshop in week 5 is that you need to have been able to, within your group, sit down with your ideas for the Heart Foundation and think to yourself, okay, this is what we're actually thinking we'd like to do, this type of idea. But then what I want you to do is I want you to, using the process that's laid out in Jack English's book, which, excuse me for a second, just in case anyone's forgotten, this book here, it's about $30. But as I said to you, it's not so much the use that you're going to get out of it during the semester. You will get enough use out of it by going back through and really pulling apart and trying to look at your idea from multiple perspectives. What I'm wanting you to be able to do is to be able to sort of say, okay, we haven't just thought about it from this perspective and then bring it into the workshop and say, oh, I didn't think of that. There's 40 different perspectives that we're actually going to analyse the idea through using Jack's book. So what I want you to do is I want you to get the copy of the book and I want you to be able to work through it and make sense of the multiple different perspectives so that every time you bring your idea back to the workshop, it's really thoroughly being worked through. All right, so we're not just picking up the obvious things that are problems for you and say, okay, go away for another 2 weeks and work on those obvious things. We want you to try and eliminate the obvious things in the first instance, and then we can try and pick up the more tricky things that you may not have thought about or may sort of be subject to maybe to do more with your confidence in the idea or your lack of confidence in the idea even. Okay, so when you come back for week 5, your idea for the Heart Foundation needs to have been worked through this, and I want to discuss with each group how you've actually gone through that process. Now it may be that within the group there are some people who buy the book and some people who don't. That's entirely up to you guys to organise. For what it's worth, this is the book and the process behind it, more importantly, that's been used by every state government in Australia now to try and help people to develop their ideas. So it's good stuff. It's well worth the money, and you'll use it going forward beyond university. When you've genuinely got ideas that you want to try and understand their potential commercial value. I'll post this evening onto via the email. I'll post out the first group sense making. I think given the way that the units got off and running, and there's a little bit of uncertainty about a few things, I think that first group sense making should be something to do with your thoughts on that process of being able to come together as a group and to put your energies into something and your actual sense making around that whole process. So I'll write a situation statement shortly that tries to pick up and pull apart the different types of feelings that might be being experienced in the room at the moment in relation to this. As always, I'm going to try and make it relatively provocative. I don't do that to annoy you. I do that to actually try and surface as much differences as we've got in the room so we can start to understand each other again. If you're missing any of the key readings, please let me know. The email that I send out later will actually have links to those readings. And any other queries, of course, just give me a tingle, drop me an email, and we'll go from there. But as I say, it's week 5 that we're catching up, and I'm expecting that your group will come together and be starting to work through ideas in relation to the restaurant, and you'll get more information from me early next week in relation to the essential do's and don'ts and how we're going to be thinking about that process of developing your menus and those types of issues. And whatever it is that you're working through on Heart Foundation, that idea needs to have been put through Jack's idea process, the 40 questions on the way through. The book itself is extremely self-explanatory. Okay, the whole point is that somebody picks it up off the bookshelf and then they can work their way through the process and get to the other end and say, okay, here's my outcome. All right, you should be able to then identify back to me, okay, here are the weaknesses and strengths that we have and that we haven't got. Any questions, any queries, by all means, just give me a tingle. Look forward to hearing from you. Otherwise, yeah, well, I'm sure I'll hear from some of you anyway. Chat to you soon. Bye.